Chapter 23. The next day, everything was the same for most of the day. Vaggie sat through a boring breakfast followed by a boring lecture followed by a boring lunch, another dreadful lecture, and a mind-numbingly dull tea time. Said tea time was back in the tea room. Vaggie was dragged to bound and gagged on the first evening of her captivity. Rosie was, without a doubt, attempting to get a reaction out of Vaggie by trying to trigger a traumatic memory, but Vaggie didn't say a word or even act surprised. Rosie almost sounded disappointed as she sat down at the table and chatted about various uninteresting topics to help Vaggie improve her conversation skills while her penguin familiars poured their tea and served their snacks. Vaggie had to keep herself from smiling. Rosie was trying so hard to upset her with her passive aggression. It was pathetic. It was almost funny enough to warrant a laugh. The tea time went on as it had the day before. Rosie was chatting and lecturing about manners, etiquette around the kingpins, and seemingly the most uninteresting topics she could come up with. Vaggie was sitting at the table, taking notes, and covertly drawing maps to keep her mind occupied, occasionally speaking only when Rosie asked her a question. She stayed composed like the little side piece she was supposed to be and counted the hours until she could return to her room to talk to Angel through the walls again. All was proceeding as normal until Alastor suddenly came in through the door. "Oh, Alastor, you're back. How wonderful," Rosie said cheerfully. "I didn't think you would be returning until tomorrow." "Well, I got my work done earlier than I had originally planned, so I thought I'd come home to be with two of my favorite ladies," Alastor said merrily, walking over and sitting himself down in the chair between Rosie and Vaggie. "Oh, Alastor, you flatter me," Rosie said, squirting a bit of hand sanitizer into Alastor's waiting hands. "Don't be so modest, Rosie," Alastor said, rubbing his hands together. "You deserve so much more for how you've been helping my beloved fiancé. Speaking of which..." Alastor wrapped an arm around Vaggie, who unsuccessfully tried to pull away to get as far away from his face as his hold would allow. "Vaggie, my love," Alastor said, nuzzling his face against Vaggie's. "Oh, how I've missed you. Tell me, dear. How have you been, my sweet, beautiful darling?" Vaggie couldn't suppress a low growl as she attempted again to pull away from his hold. "Oh, Rosie, how has Vaggie been behaving?" Alastor asked Rosie. "Has my precious dove been well behaved?" "Yes, surprisingly," Rosie said. "She hasn't committed a single faux pas since you left." "What fantastic news," Alastor said, continuing to nuzzle his cheek on Vaggie's. "Now, I don't need to return your presents." "Presents?" Vaggie asked, finally getting a hand in between her cheek and Alastor's so she could push him off. "What presents?" Alastor clapped his hand and the door opened, letting in several familiars holding more vintage clothing for Vaggie. Vaggie stared dumbfounded as she finally pushed Alastor off her and asked, "So, you bought me more dresses? How thoughtful." "Oh, but these aren't just any dresses, dear," Alastor replied as Vaggie took a sip of her tea. "These are maternity dresses." Vaggie instantly spat out her tea in shock, drenching Rosie across the table. "Vaggie!" Rosie chided angrily before Alastor held up a hand to stop her. "Are you all right, Vaggie?" Alastor asked, handing Vaggie a napkin while Rosie annoyedly wiped herself off. "Not really," Vaggie said sarcastically before coming up with an idea. "But I think I'll feel much better if I lie down. May I please return to my room?" Alastor's eyes softened in concern as he sat up in his chair, took Vaggie's hand, and said, "Of course, Vagatha, my dear. That will give you a chance to rest before I take you on another outing." Vaggie's eyes grew wider as she stood up, picked up her notebook, and said in the meekest voice she could manage, "You mean, I'll get to leave the house?" "Yes, my love," Alastor said, taking Vaggie's arm in his. "And, Rosie, you'll get to come with us too if you'd like." "Oh, Alastor, nothing would delight me more," Rosie replied, having returned to her jovial mood. "But where are we going?" I will discuss that once I've returned my fair fiancée to her bedroom, Alastor replied. I want it to be a surprise. Oh, I understand, Rosie said, resting her back against her chair. How fun. Have a nice nap, Vaggie. Thank you, Rosie, Vaggie said in an extra polite tone. Thank you for the tea. Alastor chuckled aloud and said, Rosie, my friend, you truly are a miracle worker. Rosie smiled proudly as Alastor finally escorted Vaggie out of the room. Once she was sure that they were out of Rosie's range of hearing, Vaggie asked, So, Alastor, where did you go? I was out on business, dear, Alastor said, giving Vaggie's forehead a kiss. Nothing for you, a lovely bride to be such as you to worry about. I beg to differ, Vaggie protested. There's that defiant spark I love so much, Alastor said, squeezing Vaggie's arm affectionately. How about this? I won't explain it to you now, but I'll explain it to you tomorrow night when I take you out with me one-on-one. All right? I don't see why you can't just explain it to me now. That would ruin the surprise, my dearest love. Oh, look at that. Here we are. Alastor let go of Vaggie's arm to unlock the bedroom door. Vaggie was not satisfied with the conversation and tried to get another word in. Unfortunately, before she could get another word in, Alastor opened the door, pushed Vaggie inside, and said, There we are, my dove. Time for you to get some rest. I'll be back in an hour. Sleep tight. But Vaggie tried to protest but was interrupted when Alastor blew into her face. Vaggie felt overpowering melody of an old jazz song ring through her ears, causing her to feel instantly drowsy enough to let out a loud yawn. When Vaggie's weary, confused eyes met Alastor's, he explained, Just something to help you fall asleep more easily, dear, so that you will be fully rested for our excursion. Here, let me walk you to your bed. That's all right, Vaggie tiredly stammered. I can get myself to. Oh, no, Vaggie, Alastor said effortlessly, lifting Vaggie into his arms. I must insist. Otherwise, you may be liable to faint on the floor. In an instant, the covers to Vaggie's bed pulled themselves back, and Vaggie's blue dress and matching shoes were transformed into a long, white, sleeveless, silk nightgown. There we go, Alastor said. Much better. Vaggie remained silent as Alastor laid her in the bed, pulled the sheets up to her chin, and said, Sleep tight, my fair beauty, until we meet again. It won't be too much longer until we can share a bed together. Won't that be just swell? If you say so, Vaggie said thoughtlessly. As she realized what she had just said, Vaggie turned over in the bed so that she was looking at the wall and remained silent, fearing what the consequences would be. But to her surprise, Alastor laughed, stroked Vaggie's hair, and said, Oh, you may not be excited now, but you will be by the time next week rolls around. I just know it. Not knowing what else to say, Vaggie replied, Okay. Well, okay, then, Alastor said with another chuckle as he thankfully turned on his heels and paced out the door. Sleep well, dear. As soon as Alastor had shut and locked the door, Vaggie grabbed her pillow and blanket, ran into the bathroom, and knocked on the wall. Angel, are you there? Vaggie asked. Always, can, Angel yelled from his room as he picked up his crutches and hobbled into the bathroom. What's going on? Alastor's back, Vaggie said. So, I heard, Angel replied as he settled back into his normal spot against the wall. Did he bring you any presents? He bought me maternity dresses. Oh, my God. How tone deaf can you be? I know. He said he plans on taking me and Rosie out tonight. Where to? I don't know. Suddenly, the door to Angel's room opened, and the two captives heard Alastor call out, Oh, Angel? Where are you? I'm in the bathroom, handsome, Angel called back. What is it? Did ya miss me? Not really, Alastor retorted. But you are disturbing my wife and I need to give your wounds a checkup, so why don't you come in here with me so that my wife can rest? Alastor, he's not. Vaggie tried to protest before Angel interrupted. You know I always love to spend time with you, handsome, Angel replied flirtatiously. I'll be waiting out here for you, Angel, but I must warn you to keep your hands to yourself, Alastor said merrily. You remember what happened last time? Okay. Angel replied before turning to Vaggie. I guess we'll have to talk later, Vaggie. Sleep well, babe. Then without another word, Angel hobbled back out of the bathroom. Vaggie sighed and returned to her bed with her pillow and blanket. For right now, it couldn't be helped, but when she and Angel were alone again, Vaggie would explain her plan. What Vaggie had not told Angel was that she was going to use the opportunity to escape, or at least, to get information to Charlie somehow.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video / gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!